My school, my state, banned the phones. I have been pulling my hair out for like 8 years. Has it been this easy of a solution the whole time?
How many people saw that video?
On TikTok, I think I'm at 1.8 million views now, and then apparently it did like mega numbers on Twitter. I value my mental health, so I don't use Twitter.
Smart,
But
smart. But
apparently it's in like the 2 or 3 million range on Twitter. But then when you can share from TikTok and put it basically anywhere, so I would like ballpark somewhere in the 5 or 6 million range total.
I mean that's crazy, but I think it's because so many states right now are enacting these cell phone bans in their public schools, and it's kind of having a moment. This idea, and it seems
Hmm.
like you think, what have we been waiting for?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's been my perspective on it. Is since engaging with Hike's research, it seems so obvious that this is the choice. But even without the research, like every teacher I know has been banging their head against the wall trying to compete with TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and we can't. And this need to compete with it, and an inability to come up with meaningful consequences to disincentivize students using their phones, it's created what I've taken to just calling the cult of engagement, of like your class needs to be fun and interesting and exciting, and the kids need to pay attention because you're giving them something to pay attention to. And like of course you should try to make your lessons interesting. That's the baseline for being a good teacher, is like make the learning interesting for the students. But this notion that like everything needs to be a game, don't lecture for more than 15 minutes because their little attention spans can't handle it, like it's infantilizing. These are big kids. My juniors are big kids. They can handle more rigorous stuff, more learning centric stuff. They don't need everything to be a game. We just had to remove the distractions from them.
So my school, my state banned the phones. It's been about a month in, and I wanted to give you an update on how things are going in our post-cell phone environment. First, I am noticing that behavior issues are starting to level out closer to a baseline normal. In my experience, they are lower than they were before with the phones, and it seems to me that they are lower overall across the school, but they are starting to level out closer to a baseline. Our in-school detention is starting to have regular frequent flyers, and so on.
I was of the mind that we're going to learn how to use them responsibly. They're a part of our lives now. Kids can develop digital literacy and all the like the utility skills. Comes they're super useful. Like cell phones are super convenient and super
Yeah.
useful. And so I tried to make space for a long time in my classroom for using cell phones responsibly and having students use them to assist with their research stuff, or if the class had been well behaved, I would let them listen to music while they did their classwork. And even then, it was always a fight for their attention, and I found myself like fighting the phone battle of like, you guys know that I'm going to let you use them when you're finished with your work. You know that I'm going to let you use them to listen to music if you don't make me like fight the phones while I'm doing the teaching the lesson, while I'm doing my lecture. And they would still, they would go to TikTok, they would go to Snapchat, they would be texting their partners, their friends, and it got to a point where I said, well, maybe like there isn't a way to have responsible use education in the classroom. Like maybe they're just not, they don't have the self-control yet to really start, self-regulating in the way that we would like them to, so they can use them responsibly. And then Haidt's book came out, and I listened to an interview, I think it was on the Ezra Klein show with Haidt, and he was, just going through the meat and potatoes of his data. And it completely changed my thinking of like, oh, the data is actually really overwhelming. There is not a responsible use case. These things are bad for us, and they're useful. They offer a lot of conveniences. Certainly, I like mine. I like using my apps and all the cool programs I have and posting on TikTok. But even then, like it's bad for me, and my brain is fully developed, and so maybe I'm a little more resilient to some of it. I know how to
Yeah.
distance myself from negativity. But for a lot of our students, there really isn't a way to distance themselves. They're being cyberbullied. If their notifications are going off every 10 seconds, like there's not really a way to distance yourself if you don't have the wherewithal to like turn off all your notifications and put it away when you're doing your work and things like that.
No, man, I think you're 100% right. And it's just like the steady trickle of information, and then also just anecdotal experiences like, this is, we're not going good places with this. And I think it's not just that, but it's also the comparisons. One of the things Height says is, when should you give your kid a phone? When you want them to stop being kids again. And another interview I did on this topic, a woman who was a New York Times op-ed writer, and she was like, every single other product we give our kids is safety tested, except for phones and social media.
So my school, my state banned the phones. It is the end of our second week, and I want to give you guys an update on how it's been going. What surprised me the most, I'm going to save for the end. But the obvious stuff that we kind of all expected did happen. The kids are participating in class more because it's that or do nothing. My test scores for my first quiz, they were really good, like better than last year's first test. And this one I made even harder than last year's, and yet the kids still did better on it.
I mean, the research seems overwhelming, and I know that you read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, and that kind of turned some light bulbs on for you. Like, hey, maybe it's not just that we should teach kids how to use their phone and think that they're here to stay. It's maybe we say, this really isn't good for you, for these young brains.
Yeah, the amount of times that I've had students coming to me, because I'm one of the many safe adults at work. We've got an awesome team, so there's a bunch of safe adults at work, but I'm one of the safe adults. And the amount of times kids have come to me over my last 7 or so years at County High to tell me that, like, the things they're seeing on their phones scares them to death, and it's like kids being awful to each other and rage bait content, and God, my poor queer students who come to me and all the homophobia that they see online and just the damage it's doing to their mental. Even when their friends are really supportive, their family members are really supportive, like they see so much hate online directed at them by strangers, by people they don't even know. It's disgusting.
It's fascinating, too, the awareness I think we're kind of starting to get collectively about what kids' brains are capable of, that they don't have the executive functioning we adults don't have the ability to put them away, but that even having a phone turned off in your backpack is almost as distracting as having it in front of you, because you keep thinking, I need to check it.
Yeah, it's one of my co-teachers did an experiment with his students a couple years ago, and it was this kid who's like always on his phone, and this was before the phone ban, and he said, look, just put it on your backpack, like just put it out of your pocket, out of your hands, just get it out of sight. And he was going to tell him to like turn it off or put it on silent and put it in his backpack, but then he had an idea, and he said, actually just set it on your bag for me, I want to check something. And the kid was like, okay, sure. And he was listening for the notification ding. He said, don't put it on silent or vibrate. I just want to see. And he was listening for the notification ding. He said it went off every 10 seconds for like 15 minutes. It just never stopped. The entire time it never stopped. And at some point, we as a society have to say, like, okay, these app companies are predatory. Like they are intentionally hijacking people's attention, and they don't care what it's doing to their mental health.
As I expected, academic performance and participation in class would level out back towards a baseline, and we are seeing that. It is leveling out back towards a baseline. But I am noticing higher performance overall in terms of the quality of work submitted and the quantity of classwork submitted, because the students aren't distracted entirely by their phones. Our library is still incredibly busy. Our lunchroom is still incredibly loud because the kids are reading books and they are socializing at lunch.
I think I know the answer to this question before I ask it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Where did the biggest pushback to this cell phone ban come from?
Parents.
I knew it!
Yeah.
The moms
Correct.
and the dads out there.
Yes. The kids have their phones because their parents gave them to them. Like, I don't think any of my students went and on their own, with their own money, bought their device. And I understand, right? I'm a dad myself. I'm super, super sensitive to wanting to make sure your kid is safe. There's a lot to be concerned about with safety in schools, and God forbid a tragedy happens at your school and you want to make sure that you can get a hold of your kids immediately. And you can tell people until you're blue in the face that, like, actually the best practices for crisis management involve putting your phone away, because they are going to alert bad people to your location. They're going to overwhelm the call centers of first responders who already know that something is happening and are already trying to coordinate a response. They're going to distract you from seeking cover, from seeking shelter. If you're on the phone and you're talking to somebody and you're freaking out, then you're raising the anxiety of everyone else who are also trying to seek cover or seek a way out. Like, you can tell people that, but the very primal need to, like, I need to know my kid's safe though. I sympathize with that. I totally understand that. But on the other end, we have 10th graders who are reading at a 4th or 5th grade level because they got a hold of their phones. They were given smartphones when they were in elementary school for, again, I think a really reasonable need to want to keep your kids safe, a really reasonable desire to want to keep your kids safe and stay connected to them. And that's been distracting them such that they're, let's say, and I don't know the exact numbers, but let's say that because of the distractions, they are learning 20% less material than they should be. Well, year over year, that adds up until I have a 10th grader. I had a junior actually a few days ago, and one of the questions was asking about the significance of a historical event in the document we were reading. And they said, I don't know what significant means. And it's like, what we are failing you by thinking this phone is the same as like a fidget spinner or whatever.
But not just that. I mean, as a public school teacher, people will point the finger at you and say you're failing the kids, when in reality, it really does take a village. It's the mom and the dad. It's every touch point along the way.
Yeah, I mean, this has been this refrain of like, well, why can't the schools regulate it on their own? Why do they need a law? Why do they have to yada, yada, yada? It's just another in the same sort of genre of criticism where public education over the last 40 years or so has become the dumping ground for society's problems that it doesn't want to deal with. And the blame always falls on the teachers for not being able to solve society's problems when that's not part of my job training. And so it's, well, you shouldn't be teaching morals to the kids. Well, a lot of their parents aren't teaching them any morals, so we have to. You shouldn't be teaching the kids about like sexual orientation or sexual health. That's a parent's responsibility. You're right. I think it is a parent's responsibility to do that. They're not doing it. And so we have to keep the 15-year-olds from getting pregnant while they're in high school. So we have to take on that responsibility. Well, you shouldn't be teaching kids all of the morals surrounding like race and gender and stuff. It's like, well, you're not doing it. And they're watching really hateful stuff online. And then they come to my class and they shout slurs at each other. So like somebody has to take the role of the responsible parental figure. And I'm not saying it's all. I'm not saying it's a majority, but it is enough. Parents are just not engaging with their children at all, and someone has to.
Our library is busier than it's ever been, and our lunchroom is louder than it's ever been, because the kids are checking out books that they can read when they're done with their schoolwork, and they're actually talking to their friends while they're at lunch. Shocking concept, that.
You talked about that pushback from parents. I mean, I think that's pretty widespread. I've heard so many educators say that. What I've also heard are kids who kind of come back around after a little while of these bans and been like, thank you. I mean, are you hearing from students who say, hey, thank you for taking these away from us and helping me, in school?
No. The kids are not happy with it. But the consensus opinion, I guess if I could grab, like, what does the average kid at County High think? From what I've heard from them, it seems like the bulk of the students are in agreement that, like, they don't like this, but they get it. And I still hold true that, like, even though we are leveling out to a baseline and the sort of new school year shininess has worn off, my performance in class is higher on average overall than it was last year. And the attentiveness of students during my lessons is higher on average overall. The behavior issues are lower on average overall. A couple weeks
ago, right?
Yeah, about a month ago.
Yeah. So you still have that new phone ban smell.
Yeah, and I have been really surprised. The only thing about this that surprised me is how little like meaningful resistance we've gotten. We've gotten gripes, right? The kids have complained, but like that's teenagers. They're going to. It's part of being a teenager. But I haven't had any students trying to like find some workaround, trying to dig it out of their bag and like sneak it under the table. I've taken one kid's phone one time, and our policy is if you see it, you turn it into the office. You have the student, you either escort them or you have somebody come and collect it, but it goes to the office immediately. And the kid just was like walking in the hallway, and he pulled it out of his pocket, and I said, that's got to go to the front office. Let's take a walk. And he said, yeah, you're right. I wasn't even thinking about it. And off to the front office we went, and that was it. That was the whole interaction.
Is there, I mean, I know you in your video, you kind of mentioned some surprising side effects, but what have been the surprising side effects, the things that you didn't expect to happen positively as a result of taking the phones away?
Oh, man. So direct instruction is the new fancy education buzzword, but what normal people call it is lecture. Trying to have students pay attention in a lecture previously, even with my advanced, even with my honors, is the pulling of teeth. So I slightly modified the way that I do my lectures, not in a significant way, just a little bit to incentivize attentiveness a bit more. And then without the phones, because it's not like listen to Mr. Buchwalter or watch my favorite streamer play my favorite video game. It turns out when the options available are do nothing or listen to Mr. Buchwalter, they tend to listen to Mr. Buchwalter more often than not. And so we're having more discussion in my classroom. I'm asking questions and getting better answers. When I turn the kids loose to like, okay, we're going to do like a table talk activity and there's a prompt and you discuss the prompt and we'll come back together. And rather than them just immediately the moment that my control over the room has been passed back to them, they go to their phones. They actually do it. They do the discussion activities and they're getting a lot out of it. And it's really, really heartwarming to see, and this might shock you, to see children learning in school.
Today, all of my students, 100% of them, took notes in my class, did their assignment, asked for help when they got stuck, and turned it in. And then when they were done, they talked to each other.
I've heard too from other educators that have had like the wholesale ban where they can't use them in lunch, they can't use them in the hallway, that when they leave school, they don't immediately pull it out because nobody's posted anything for the past 8, 9, 10 hours. So I haven't missed anything.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know what their behavior with their devices is outside of the building, but I imagine that because of like the constant pressure reminder, think about it, ding, ding, ding in your pocket, like you've had peace and quiet pretty much for the day, that there's not a strong reason to like, now I've got to check my phone. If you've not had to think about it all day long, like you do get to remember like, oh, this is just like a tool that I have to use and not this thing that requires my constant attention.
I imagine your experience both as an educator dealing with these phones and then also seeing the response to the ban. I mean, does it change your own plan on what you'll do with cell phones and your kids?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, my wife and I are very much like highly restrictive on screen time. The screen time that my son gets is minimal and all informative. The only like silly, goofy thing he really watches is like sometimes we'll put on Bluey, and even then that's like that's a really like instructive show that encourages creativity and stuff. So he'll watch like some Miss Rachel, or he'll watch like the Snoop Dogg show where they do different nursery rhymes, but it's Snoop Dogg doing them. That's very endearing. But again, very minimal screen time. And then once he's older and like is better able to like figure out what a phone is without chewing on it, even then, probably a dummy phone until he's a teenager. And then we'll see how he's handling the dummy phone. We'll see what the tech looks like. Maybe we'll have better safety regulations on apps by then. But until he's better able to practice self-control on his own, I don't want to hijack his attention or his ability to learn self-control with a device that seems to be designed rather maliciously to take self-control and attention.
That's the thing too. Is I mean, I'm hoping that we see more adoption from kind of the dumb phone. Is if you're a mom and dad and your really big concern is just keeping track of your kids being able to get a hold of them, you could do that with a flip phone or a dumb phone. But I think also that idea that being able to get in touch with your kid in case there's an emergency that's for you.
Yeah.
That's not for the kid. And I think that's another thing I've heard too is the vast majority of the reasons why parents want the kids to have the phone is for the parents. But it costs the kids. And it's a maybe on the danger, but almost a definitely on the risk and the educational outcomes and drawbacks.
One of the things that I saw a lot before the phone ban was I would tell the kid to put their phone up and their response would be, I'm texting my mom. And of course I'm firm in my classroom. It's no, the phrase you're looking for is yes sir, try again. But they would turn their phone around and show me and say like, I'm texting my mom, and they would show me to like prove they weren't lying to me, I guess. And it's like, no, really, like their parents have been texting them all day. And it's like, you don't, why are you doing that? Like they should be paying attention in class. They have friends that they want to talk to. Like you don't have to have constant connection to them. You don't. And so there's going to be growing pains here as everyone gets used to the policy. And I think really like there'll be the initial benefits of like there will probably be less stress in the kids' grades will go up in the short term. But long term, that's where the benefits are going to be. That if you're losing that 20% of learning every year because you've been distracted, well, what does that kid look like when they haven't been distracted and 5 years have gone by and they haven't been losing that 20% year over year? Like, you might find that your child is incredibly intelligent. They just didn't have the opportunity to show you that. And I think that's going to be something a lot of parents are really excited about.
But the thing that surprised me the most had nothing to do with whether or not they would check out books or do better in school. We kind of all expected that. What surprised me the most is that issues of behavior declined. I expected that because phones act like a digital pacifier, our kids that struggle to self-regulate would really struggle to self-regulate. And instead, the opposite has happened.
So what about social skills of actually communicating, to each other face to face as opposed to through text? And not to overly vilify it, but I mean, I think you're seeing anecdotally in a lot of research that suggests these kids are forgetting how to actually interact with people face to face.
Yeah, and the constant like heightened anxiety that phones give you make you more prone to interact with others in a way you normally wouldn't. So one of the really strange things, something I did not expect at all that occurred, our fights are down. Like our number of fights are down. And I don't know if that has a connection directly to the phone, or maybe we just like a group of kids that fought a lot graduated or something. I don't know. But it wouldn't surprise me if the lowered sort of baseline level of anxiety that kids are operating under is helping them respond to negative stimuli in a healthier way, where they would go to blows before, but now they can like, I don't know, say something mean to the other person and go about their day.
We have a surprisingly low amount of students pressing that button of trying to get around the phone ban policy. And again, at least in my classroom, I haven't had any issues with students trying to sneak and use their phones.
You talked about pushback from parents, but other educators you've talked to, I mean, is this like 100% you guys are all on board?
Oh, God, yeah. I was walking down the hall to get something from my box in the front office last week before maybe. And there were a couple of English teachers that I chat with that were all in one of their rooms, and I popped in and I was like, hey, guys, are y'all like exhausted at the end of every day now? And all of them were like, oh, my God, yes. And the reason why is because the kids are like asking for help on their assignments. And so I am, and apparently everyone else in the building too, is just sort of scurrying around their classroom all day long. I get my steps in. Whereas before, I give them their assignment and I'll go to the front of the room and like sit in my chair and make myself available to them, but I don't want to like be breathing down their neck. But they don't want to ask for help because they encounter friction and they get on their phones, and you tell them to put the phone up, or you write them up, or you take the phone, and then like the bulk of my interactions were very negative. It was policing phones. And now, man, they are wearing me out. I'm going, this kid needs help, and this kid needs help, and this kid needs help. And it's been great. It's been super, super fulfilling to see them trying, and really wanting to learn the material because they're not being distracted. And that seems to be the norm in my building, is like everybody is just exhausted. We're all running around our classrooms all day long, helping kids out, working with them with their assignments. It's great. It's fantastic.
Is there any world where you would ever go back?
No, not on your life. No.
I mean, that's about as slam dunk as it gets. I mean, it's hard to get any group of people to agree on one thing. But if you're getting all the teachers you're talking to that are like, absolutely, let's keep on going with this, then that's saying something.
Yep. And I've noticed with myself as well, because I'm a big believer in like, I'm not going to ask the kids to do something that I'm not going to do. So I make a point to show them every class me taking my phone out of my pocket and putting it face down on my desk and saying, if you're not allowed to use yours, I'm not going to allow myself to use mine. I will check my phone once between classes to make sure my wife hasn't texted me anything about our son. I will check my phone once at the start of my planning period for the same reason. And then other than that, I don't look at it during the day. And my clarity and my ability to think in more complex ways I was like, oh, I've been frying my brain and I didn't even notice. I'll give a great example is I'm working on my fourth book right now. And I got stuck over the summer because I thought I had written myself into sort of a contradiction hole where I would have to rebuild basically 2/3 of it because of the hole that I thought I'd ripped myself into. And I got super mad and I put it down. And I was just sort of idly on my planning period, just grading papers, and the light bulb came on. I said, "Oh, I can change this and this, and it works." I was, where has that idea been? Have I just not, like, oh, I've been so distracted, I never gave myself the space to, like, just sit and think because I've been on my phone all the time. And so, like, I've changed my behavior with my phone, and it's been really positive for me as well.
Well, I couldn't be more thrilled for you. Our public educators need more help than ever, and it is interesting that so many states that are pushing this, they're requiring it of the public school classrooms, none of the private school classrooms.
It doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, no surprise, but you would like to see some consistency if this is really a better approach. But for people who want more of what you have to offer, how can they find you?
Well, if you would like your phone to be an educational and enlightening experience rather than a doom-scrolling nightmare, you can learn some history from me on TikTok at Johnster Truck. It is like Monster Truck, but with a J. And then you can find my science fiction novel, The Night Sky Darker, on Amazon and Audible. The audiobook just launched, so if you're looking for some science fiction to read for the fall, then I would really appreciate it if you check that out.